Welcome to topic 5. We'll be looking at organizing the classroom environment. And this is us really focusing on what we want our classroom space to look like and how we want our students and how we would like to operate within the space and how it's conducive to learning. So I have also included examples that will help you with your assignment, as well as closer to the end, I'll explain to you exactly what I'm expecting to see in your assignments. I've also uploaded another video on the Moodle platform, which is a great look into what classrooms can be used for and how they can be used, as well as a lot of two journal articles and another piece that I wrote on organizing the classroom environment, because I think this is something you can use for a long time within your teaching career. So the way you organize your classroom is really important. Students will respond to what they feel in the space. If they feel that there hasn't been a lot of effort in the space, that the space itself is not respected by being cared for, they will feel that it's not a space that needs to be held sacred. It's not very imaginative, it's not very learner-centered, because remember, we're trying to move towards a more learner-centered environment, and therefore your classroom too needs to create that feeling, create that atmosphere. So put a lot into your environment. Get kids to help you to build a space that is something that they can take ownership of and they can feel the respect. As a teacher and as adults, we model respect, and that is how children learn respect. And also respect of your environment is something that's very important. So understand that space and the way it's organized also affects student behavior. For example, if it's quite organized, then students understand organization is part of the classroom and also part of what is expected of them. As I said in the previous slide, the physical arrangement of a classroom can have an effect on pupils. On pupils, it's very important. It does affect their behavior. If you have lots of disorganization happening in your class, there's lots of broken things are laying around, students don't feel that they need to be focused or organized. Also, it will waste a lot of time for them to get things in order, to pick up things, for you to pick up things, and therefore the learning is then put a step behind. And you're focusing more on organizing your space or finding things and actually the teaching process. So create a good atmosphere for your learner, create boundaries and safety within the space. We know, for example, that is our reading corner, the books go there, the books have to be neatly placed, and that really creates safety as well as boundaries. Remember, we need to build external boundaries in order for children to develop internal boundaries and internal discipline. So that is why we always try to have a space that is organized and exactly as it's supposed to be. So this is a quote I found from the Handbook for Qualities of Effective Teaching. It's a very good book, Effective Teachers. It's a good book, it's very interesting, and it also talks about the physical environment and the way that effective teachers organize their physical environment. So we'll be looking at the components of the classroom environment, and we're going to look at this from 3 points: the physical component, the social component, and the educational teaching component. So the physical component really incorporates the classroom space, the furniture, and the teaching aids. And the social is more about the relationships in the environment. So this aspect of the environment is created by mutual interaction between pupils and between pupils and yourself. So it's peer to peer and teacher to student as well. And the educational or teaching component incorporates things such as the content and aims of your course, as well as the way in which teaching and learning situations are arranged and how they take place. So these are the different components that you need to consider in your classroom environment. So as a teacher, you should utilize the following aspects of the classroom environment. You should utilize the fixed assets, and those are the classroom buildings, the walls, the boards, the building cupboards. Obviously, we need that for storage purposes, for putting things on the wall, and obviously for protection in terms of the classroom building. Then the movable assets, these are things like the desks and the cupboards, tables and shelves, and these things help you to create the environment by creating groups or creating circles or desks lined up to the front. Those help you to create a environment that is easy to move between or navigate, or difficult to navigate depending on you. And then of course the teaching aids like pictures and other apparatus and stocks and things, textbooks, exercise books, and all of those things, and these help you to reach the aims of the lesson, and it helps you to connect with your students in a real and meaningful way. So most of this is self-explanatory, but I do want to make a few points. You need to be aware of your learners and their needs. So for example, if you have a learner that is in a wheelchair. Make sure that it's easy for them to navigate the space. Make sure that there's space for their wheelchair. Make sure that they are able to access everything that they'll be needing to access. The same if a child has a hearing or sight problem, which really affects the way that they will be able to engage in the classroom. Make sure that they put in a place where it's easy for them to see what's happening in the classroom, that they can easily hear. Always check in with them to make sure that they are able to follow what's going on, because hearing has been shown to be a great have a great impact on the way students learn, and also it helps their learning quite a bit. So they might be 2 grades behind sometimes because teachers don't understand how difficult it is for them to hear. And just a point here, if you ever think that a child may have a hearing challenge, please speak to their parents as early as possible, because it can be dealt with in an easy manner. The same goes with eyesight, because if you don't, difficulties in hearing, for example, can affect language development, it can affect balance, it can affect the way they respond to other learners, it also affects their self-esteem, peer-to-peer interaction. So hearing and sight is very important things to be tested for learners, and as early as possible as well. These are just some quotes by some teachers on seating arrangements and the way that they feel that it has an importance in the classroom space. Think about what your thoughts are around seating arrangements. Speak to teachers that you know, what do they feel are the importance of seating arrangements, and how have they found various arrangements to work for them. So I've provided a few examples of what seating arrangements can be used for and how they make a difference in the classroom. For example, horizontal rows, which is something that is more traditional, is very useful for independent work. Things like focusing on the educator, so it's quite teacher-centered as opposed to learner-centered. Then you have the cluster of 4 or 6, whatever the case is, that's good for group work and individual work. So it depends on what you want to do in your classroom. It doesn't have to be stagnant. It doesn't always have to be the same. One week you may have your desk in one way and you can change it the next week, or alternatively you change your desk according to what you're doing that day. If today is a class on very interactive kind of processes and work, you can have a cluster arrangement. If you want to do a more teacher kind of lesson with that you need to do a little bit more lecturing, you can have a horseshoe or front facing desk and horizontal rows, so it's more teacher centered. So use your classroom space, move your classroom space, don't just keep it the same way for the whole year. It is a little bit more work, but get the learners to help you, and in that way you can really use the space to its biggest potential, its most potential. So this is going to help you in your assignment. I'm giving you some ideas of seating arrangements and classroom layouts. They all have different benefits. They all have pros and cons, but it depends on you as a teacher to really understand what works best for you. For me, the library space is always important. Books, reading, words are so important. Have word of the day, have synonym of the day, or of the week. Have definitions on your wall. Make it a space where reading is encouraged. Reading is shown to be exceptionally important within the learning process, of course. But a lot of learners are getting through school with a very low reading age, and they're just kind of winging it in some instances. So make sure that reading is the center of most of what you do, and encourage your kids to read for pleasure as well. Now, I know in our environments this is not necessarily possible. Our classrooms are smaller. We don't have as much resources or money available to get everything that we need for our classrooms. Some of these look quite ideal. And in your assignment, you're going to have one ideal classroom space and one non-ideal classroom space. But be a little bit creative. Schools don't provide everything. Ask people that you know for if they're giving away shelves, if people are giving away extra paint. If there is carpets are very useful to separate space. So find things out there. Ask people if there's anything that they could donate to your classroom space. It's going to make a big difference. Every little piece of color, every poster is something that students are going to remember. Another super ideal example. As you can see, it's quite small classrooms, so these don't always work for us. But remember to have things like plants in your classrooms. It helps students to care about a living organism. It also helps to bring in some color into the space. Try to separate different areas for different activities. Again, I know this is not something we necessarily can do in our schools, but it's just to give you some ideas of what is possible. Yeah, you can see carpets are used to separate the space. Even use the windows. You could use color cellophane on some window panes to bring in color, bring in different textures on the walls, bring in things that they can touch and quite tactile things. Tactile things are very important, especially in the lower grades. Things that they can touch, that they can smell, that they can see. It helps to boost their development and helps them to understand that everything is different, and also just exciting for them to touch things that are different as well. So this is quite a provocative kind of topic because many teachers use seating arrangements to manage student behavior. So everybody has a different perspective on this. And so some people feel that if children are quote unquote naughty or difficult to handle, that you must put them at a certain place, either right in front or right at the back. And I don't particularly like the point of that they make about ADD students, but the point that I think we should make here is that you can use your student arrangement or your student desk to help learners rather than just talking about controlling them, but rather we want to help them. We want to put them, maybe a less talkative child that needs a little one-on-one interaction with a child that's more confident, that is going to be kind of draw that other child out of their shell. So think about the way you can help students with the student arrangement. How would it make it easier for them? How is it easier for you to interact with students that need a little bit more attention? So think about this when you're arranging your classroom space. So we're always going to be talking about student-centered classroom environments. I would say make sure that they are adaptable classroom spaces, that they can move as I spoke about earlier, have flexible seating, of course. I would say have a smaller teacher work area. I know this is something that teachers don't want to give up because it's their space. But think about using especially if you have a small classroom, usually we have huge desks in our classrooms. But if you have maybe a U-shaped desk or a desk that has even an L-shaped desk, you can use that to have a student working on the side of your desk. You can have it as a place where they can do reading groups, they can do one-on-one reading, they can have teacher one-on-one time with you. Make sure that your teacher desk is a useful space and not just something that stands in the corner that you use after the students are out of the space or sit at while they're doing their work. Make it a usable space. Also be organized, have materials at hand, have them in a specific place, and have students aware of where everything is. If they need to sharpen their pencil, have a set of sharpened pencils already so they don't waste time sharpening pencils and so on. But let them also know what exactly the protocol is to follow for everything. Use technology in your classroom. We are in the technological age or technology age, so encourage students to use technology and you use it too, because it helps them in the rest of their learning journey. It's not something that they're not going to use in future. And also, as I said earlier, have a literally rich environment. Use words, use reading, create a fantasy world for them in the world of books so that they feel that books is something that is exciting, reading is something that is exciting, and it's not something that they have to do, and it's something that they want to do. Okay, so this is self-explanatory. Please read this. It's quite important for you to know. Same with the teacher benefits. Please read this at your own time. I want to get a little bit to the end so we can talk about your assignment. These are factors that hamper the creation of a favorable environment. Please read this as well. I use this as examples. These are great examples of what a classroom can look like. Lots of color, lots of elements that can get students excited. I like this welcome too. It makes your students feel like you're excited that they're there. So that's quite something that I would encourage definitely. These as well, so students can read them at their own time and don't have to always ask you. Okay, so for your assignment, I want you to have two different classroom spaces, a positive one and one that is more unfavorable. In the positive one, add whatever elements you think would be ideal. Create them as a picture. Some of the examples that you saw you of how you can create pictures. Preferably try to do them on the computer, otherwise you can do them by hand and take a picture of it. Label them carefully, make sure that the labels are clear, and then on a separate sheet, so you'll have 3 sheets, the favorable, unfavorable, and another sheet of explanations which will explain every label and explain why you did what you did in a specific way. You can either work individually or in groups depending on you, whatever works better for you. I know some distance students will find it difficult to work in a group, but work in a way that's best suited to you. Use color, use images, use lots of things to make it exciting. Use this as a way to really think about what the classroom space should ideally have. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to chat with me, ask me questions, send me a message, whatever works best for you. But please don't struggle. I'm here to answer all of your questions. Good luck with your assignment. I hope you enjoy it. And please take your time going through it carefully. Don't rush it too much.